You're listening to All Things 3D, where we talk about the world of fabricating, designing, and capturing in the third dimension.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hi, this is Mike Bulzer, All Things 3D, and this is 3D in Review for 10/26/2018. Theme of our show is From Concept to Finished Products, 3D in Design, and we have a special guest with us today. And I'm going to pop to Joe's screen. This is Joe Dunne from OnShape. He's been on the show, gosh, what's it been? About 2 years now? 2 years ago?
Probably been about that long, yeah.
Yeah. If you remember, you just were starting and you had a very unique product, and we're not going to talk a little about that until a little bit later, but I brought Joe on because, as you know, I have a tendency to be a little boisterous and big-mouthed on my show as well as Twitter. Made some comments about how I felt that Magic Leap was paying all of the people that were there, and some of the people, including, I don't think Joe made a comment, but somebody else from OnShape.
Oh, I did, yeah.
Wanted to correct me and said, hey, we've been doing demos. So I said, well, you know, it's a good time to get Joe back on. Let's talk about what they're doing for Magic Leap as well as other items. I went out and looked at their product. As you know, I've been a Fusion 360 guy, but I always try to go back and take a look at it. They've got some new features. Also, it looks like there's a little difference in pricing, and hopefully we can talk with Joe about that too, and the different tiers that are available. But let's get back to Magic Leap. As you saw in my little, sadly, I wasn't the one that took that video, and I have issues with people doing video in portrait, but that's how it came out. But I thought it was kind of good, full length. I'm actually wearing the Magic Leap. It's not mine. Frankly, it's a little too expensive for me still. The company called The Wild here in Portland, which later on this weekend, I'm going to be putting up a, what are we going to call it, an off-site post video that I did with them showing about their product, which allows you to interact with up to, I think, 8 people in a virtual reality or mixed reality system. And so that's going to be kind of cool. In fact, I sent Joe a link. I'll kind of hook these two up because I think that would be a great product. I know that Joe's going to talk a little bit more what they plan to do with the Magic Leap, but I think they have the same thing kind of in mind. You have multiple people looking at the same product or device or prototype, all in a 3-dimensional representation and able to actually manipulate and move it. And so there are a ton of programs or applications available that'll be doing that. So I thought it's key. So what do I think about the Magic Leap? It's good. Field of view is better than that of the HoloLens. I thought the chromatic aberrations were more severe. And what else? I felt the translucency or the occlusion of object was actually better, as they indicated, which then makes me wonder why, because the way that they create the videos is that they present the video as a composite that's computer generated. Why didn't they just occlude it more? Because I felt that the translucency that they were trying to represent in the videos was more than what you actually see. So, in fact, I wish they would have multiple views. I looked at their developer kit, and I didn't see any way to modify that. So it would be more like ARKit or ARCore, where you could actually create objects that appear solid, at least in video, and so you could do kind of a little bit of, what do you want to call it, hybrid filmmaking with compositing, which I like to play with, as you saw in my little Witchery in Marshall Park video with my wife just a moment ago. And actually, I'll jump back to it real quick. As you can see there, that object in the background is one of the little things from AR stickers from the Stranger Things. So it's a little being, and then I created some post effects and after effects. So clearly, it's very cool to use ARKit or ARCore to do compositing. And why it's not better in Magically, I don't know, but this is the time to talk to them about it, and hopefully they'll make some changes. Okay, on that note, I think we can jump right into talking with Joe. And before I do that, let me go out to their website. So if you're not familiar with OnShape, they make a unique product that, if I remember correctly, Joe, in fact, stop me if I'm wrong, this product relies on the cloud. In fact, don't you make a statement that this is kind of the Google Docs of the solid modeling world? Is that something I read somewhere, or
Yeah.
have you heard that yet?
I know you know that. So yeah, I mean, I think that we are definitely a cloud-based product. We started with a blank sheet of paper, you know, and coming from the SolidWorks background, we were the team, and we developed that product. So it does, you know, SolidWorks influenced our thinking, you know, but anyone building a new system today, we thought that the cloud is, the benefits are definitely architecturally, and the benefits that you get as a user, which is why we're going to talk about Magically, because that's all about the cloud on that. Okay. You know, there's a lot of reasons to do it. So yes, I always tell people, if you want to think about Google Docs, which means you and I and everybody can collaborate in that single source of truth, right? We can all be in the same document and edit. And then there's also a little bit of Git when you really get down to it, GitHub with some versioning and how we can work as teams and work in an organized fashion with versioning. But it's really that simple. It's just a modern version of CAD.
Cool. Well, you know, we were kind of going to go through the website, but you said, you know, why don't I take control and maybe show a couple of demos? So some of the features that I have questions for is, obviously, since it's been about 2 years since we talked, you have clearly more features with this, and I played it again with it, and I don't know the big difference between the little version that I have and the one that is the professional version. But I did notice there were some new features. It seems simpler to use. But two things struck out in looking over this. You now have a version 2 of your parametric modeling. What makes it 2.0?
Wow, marketing. So you know, what we did is we realized when we fully embrace the idea of feature-based parametric modeling. You know, and the idea in OnShape is, just like most of the professional CAD tools out there, you typically will create a sketch. The sketch has constraints, and then you're adding or removing material, and you're creating a recipe, right? That's a parametric recipe. And the benefit, it's how most parts are built. Most professional engineers are using that. It's pretty much the standard out there. So we really embraced it. So when we say 2.0, it's a lot of stuff. You know, I wouldn't even be able to cover all of it, but let's just take configurations. My favorite part of our product is configurations. And it's one of those, all this stuff gets rather deep, Michael. So, I mean, but a configuration is if you have something that's similar but different, same shapes, but different sizes of the shape. You know, it can be anything from, it's any family of parts. It's typically, it's a table-driven design. That's a very common approach. But for us, in most CAD systems, regardless of what you used in the past, and by the way, it's something that everybody uses. When you get into professional usage of CAD, configurations are just everyone. I mean, regardless of industry, just about, you find these different cases where they come in and they're useful. Whether it's just to automate a few different iterations of something, or you may have millions of combinations of your product. And a configuration allows you to configure millions of combinations. Ours is a function call versus being a table-driven approach. So in most systems, it's literally kind of in fact, with SolidWorks, it was literally Excel. We used Excel and we embedded Excel inside SolidWorks. And then for every row in SolidWorks, you can make a feature a different size. You can turn features off. You can make things different sizes. You can control the whole model, the parametrics of it per row. But if you think about it, if you have 1,000 rows, it already becomes rather unmanageable. And it's rather inflexible. So a table-driven approach is great, but what we can do is for us, our entire product, the source code of our product is called Feature Script. And I'm totally like going all over the map. But our product is written in a source code called FeatureScript. It's what our developers use. It's how the features are developed. And that's how our configurations also use its technology. So for us, we can create a table. We can create a table of a table. We can create a configuration of a configuration with logic to control that configuration. We can have user-defined values. So when you stack up the capabilities of how flexible it is, it's easier to manage. It's far more functional and it's far more powerful. And so, I guess that is an example of parametrics. I mean, we have FeatureScript, which is a way of automating things in OnShape, because you can take anything in our product that you build, and if you have a little bit of development chops, I mean, it's not for the light of heart. I mean, it is a development language, but it is open source and anyone can have it, and you can write your own features. And I mean, anything. And when it gets, and the beauty of writing something in FeatureScript in our product is that it's not just some, like my experience with SolidWorks and probably Fusion and other products is if you write a macro, you write a program for those, they all have a scripting language typically, but you're typically going to write it for a single operating system or compile it for a specific use case. Even size of the windows. I remember in SolidWorks that, macros are sensitive to your resolution because where you picked on the screen, it might not work. And that's all that goes away with us. You write some automation in OnShape using FeatureScript, and it will work anywhere on any device. It is now basically you've added functionality to our core product. So anyway, our parametric 2.0 is just kind of little improvements over parametric modeling across the board is really the way I'd put it.
So the other feature that I read is design data management.
Yes. And
from my understanding, as mentioned before, working as an IT director, making sure that all the different versions match up. And I can't remember the product we were using, but it was an Autodesk product. I think it was Architectural Studio.
Buzz, they've had a lot. Everybody, we all have.
Well, this is years ago.
Yeah.
And, it was a pain. They locked files, which could be an issue. Or if you're working within multiple offices, back then we were on ISDN, so we didn't have fast rate. So literally, you had independent file structures. So there was a lot of manual processing that went along with it, so people knew what versions they were working with. And literally, I wouldn't say we had gotten to the point where we had to get in our vehicle and take a disk over to our other office, but this is 20 years ago. Actually, was it that? It's almost 20 years ago that we were moving in that direction, and obviously the tools have gotten better. But you have something new to offer in 2.0. Can you kind of give us an overview of what makes this particular program? Now, obviously, it's all in the cloud, and if you have multiple people on the team in the cloud, that can create some problems. How do you rectify or control that process?
Yeah, so let's start the basics. Go back to, we're like Google Docs, right? If you and I are in a sheet or a slide or whatever, you and I can edit the same thing at the same time. Whatever you do, I see. Whatever I do, you see. And our product is built from the ground up that way. Again, why we did this. You and I can be in the same sketching in the same document in the same model at the same time. You can create a line, I can trim your line. It just works. Our product, and it's because we're not a file-based system. So we're inherently collaborative from the lowest level DNA. Now, that's great to be able to do that, but now we have to work as teams. We have to work in an organized way. We have to have some control over that. I don't want you to trim my line, even though you can do it. So what you were describing is how every engineering company still works today. I mean, you may have done that 20 years ago, but people are still doing a process of, they have a vault, they have a PDM system, they have a system where one user goes into that vault and checks it out, and only he can modify that thing because they are protecting who can modify that one thing at a time, and it's usually a file, right? So for us, we don't have any of those file limitations. So for us, as many people that you want to edit and do things at the same time, we have a very concurrent workflow, but we still want you to have a control over that, which is what the data management side goes. We've had versioning. You can, in fact, we don't have a save button in our product. Never did. And if you've used it, you'll notice one thing I would be surprised if you were to tell me. I'm not saying it's impossible, but one thing that you never do is crash. The product is inherently stable. But we do it so you don't have that defensive save, which I used to do in SolidWorks all the time.
Oh.
If I worked the whole day, and the worst thing in the world was if I forgot to save after using it for hours and hours, because now you're worried about saving, you know. But
sadly, there are still products out there.
All of them, and we wrote SolidWorks, so it's not like we're better, but that when you run everything local, when you have an installed product that's running locally on your local CPU, it's an inherent byproduct of that architecture. Because if you have a fault, a memory fault, you have some problem, the system's going down. It's just the way it is. And with the cloud architecture, you don't have that problem. The users, at least, are not exposed to that. So we don't have save, but we do have a version. Versions are exactly what you think. When you create a version, it's a snapshot. It's an immutable, never will change, will always be there forever. Just like in Google Docs and just like in Git, they all have the same concept. Now, you've had versioning for a long time. We've had that forever, but there's no structure to a version. Create versions as many times as you want. You can branch, you can version. What we did is a data management workflow on top of that. Very simple, very clean. But when you want a formal process where not just do you want to create a version, but I want you and I want my coworker and I want other people to also sign off and maybe approve that process before the version goes from a in process to release. So it's just a little bit of a process on top of versioning is what release management is. And it's PDM. I mean, when you really get down to it. Yeah.
Sounds very clean, and obviously having something that's clean and optimized makes the whole experience seem very fluid. So as mentioned, I decided to go back into OnShape before the show. Makes sense. And I felt that the thing was very fluid. I don't have a tremendously fast connection. What would you expect somebody who wants to utilize this? I know we have desktop versions. I use Chrome. What browsers does this work with?
For me, browsers don't make any difference. The Chromebook is my favorite platform. If you really, just because I love the idea that I can use this on a Chromebook, but you know, it's so simple. You pop it open and it works. So browsers, we really are agnostic. They all work well. I don't see any difference necessarily. Yeah. Oh, go on.
So you mentioned that Chromebook. So effectively, this seems to be a good educational tool.
Yeah, well, let's talk about, you asked about pricing and seats and everything. It might be just, let's just talk, because, you know, education is answered that way. So
go ahead and bring up the,
go bring up the website. That's, okay. You know, so there's a few that aren't shown here, but these are the ones that we show on the website. So there's one that's not shown here is education. So there actually is a education seat as well. It's free. And so if you're a student, when you sign up, you see a lot more information when you actually go to the sign up, you know, so this is just this is the comparison for our professional products. And then there is a free version of our product that has never gone anywhere and it's always there. And you're a free user. By the way, you asked, it seemed like it was different. There's no difference between the free version and what you're looking at on the screen. You have all the same functionality, all of it. Okay. So it's not different other than release management. We do for the pro version, there is a release workflow that you don't get with the free version.
Okay.
The difference with free and pro is privacy. That's how we've always done it. So if you need privacy, if you're doing commercial work, that's where one of these products that you're looking at should be there. So education is equivalent to pro. I should say it's either standard or pro. I'm sorry. I can't remember if we put release management and education.
I think it's, let's see, it's easy.
But it's free. You know, my point is, if you go, if you do at edu, if you do OnShape, or onshape.com/edu, you'll find it. But there's a whole page. There's classroom material. It's structured for anybody at any university or any higher ed school, even at high school. You can teach it in your class. You can use it. It's great. And we don't have to. It's kids in school don't expect a download and an install. If you tell them there's an install, they don't know what you're talking about. So this is what they look at our product as. Of course, that's the way products should work. You know, so it's very natural. Yeah.
So what do you need to get an educational? Just an email address?
Yeah, no requirements. Just say you're a student. Yeah.
Wow. And student does not have private capability.
No, they do. That's what I'm saying. Student version is a full pro equivalent to pro seat, basically. Okay. And believe it or not, I thought the free version would be great for education. Actually, we actually thought free was going to be what the students would use too. But interestingly, the professors weren't too happy about free. Guess why?
I don't know.
They don't want them cheating off each other. So they were really obsessed over the privacy more than some of our commercial customers. So we wound up having to change education and make it equivalent to pro, essentially.
Okay.
But it's,
yeah. Well, let's jump back to the other levels. So we have a standard, and obviously it has most of the features, as you just mentioned, also private capability of 1500. But jumping to the, as you mentioned, the most popular professional at 2100. Now, this is one user per year. Now, is that a one-time payment, or is that just
a subscription? No, it's a subscription. Okay. We've changed. We do an annual subscription model, so it's a 2100 a year. The difference between the two products of Standard and Pro is release management. Okay. Okay. So if you're a single, so basically, if you're a company with a single seat of, you only need you're a one-person shop, Standard's probably fine. But if you've got multiple users and you want to have some formal process, that's probably professional, which is most of our user base.
Okay. Well, and obviously it's grown, and we're going to get to that in a second. One of the things that, let's see if I can find it. Maybe you can help me so I don't spend a lot of time here. One of the things I noticed that grew was the number of plugins. So is there a way to get to that?
Well, there's the App Store. You want to go from here. I don't know if we should have a link, but if you go to appstore.onshape.com, you can get there. It's a separate website.
Right. So appstore.onshape?
.onshape.com, yeah.
Okay, let's see if that works. Seems to be
and all that is, yeah, this is just our, and you can go this, typically most people go here from inside our product, right?
Right.
There's a couple links in there. This is literally equivalent to the experience, and everything is like the Apple Store or Google Play. I mean, I use, since this is my responsibility, I use Apple kind of as a roadmap, or I should say a bunch of us. And what it is you find that there's multiple solutions for any particular discipline that you're looking at. So rendering are two good ones that you actually might like. Reality Server and OneRender are both, they're cloud-based rendering tools. You'll notice Keyshot is probably something you're familiar with.
I'm familiar with.
And then notice the difference in colors on the right. There are desktop applications that are partners, and then there are cloud-based applications. And they all just use our API. And what you get is if you click on like Reality Server, it's just as an example, just to do one. If you're a user, you pick here. And since you didn't go from OnShape in here, it doesn't know who you are, but the website would normally have it's a single sign-on. It would know who you are, like the Apple Store. And you can actually purchase the product. So you can pick the product and subscribe to it or purchase it all with one button. So it's very simple. It's not just a marketing web page that sends you to somebody else's web page, like most. In fact, in our market, it's just an app store, so it's not that big a deal. But there is no app store in the mechanical CAD world. This is the only one where it's truly a pick the product, hit the button, and you're done. And these run inside OnShape if they're a cloud-based product, and they run on Chrome, and they run on all your different platforms. They're great. So wherever you go, all your applications go with you too when you log in.
That's really neat. Let's look at CAM.
Yeah.
This obviously you've progressed in this area, and you seem to like the Esprit OnShape connector. So you're linking to more professional CAM type tools than when we first talked. So that seems to be something.
Yeah, I mean, our product. I mean, realize our product is really if it's not clear, the business, everything about us is we're focused on I've got quadrant, the upper right quadrant. This is we're focused on high-end professional companies typically. That's for lack of a better description. They tend to be SolidWorks. That's just where the market is. Most users,
that's because that's what the educational world went to, and then you know how that works. So
it's the education market. It's the business model of SolidWorks. Regardless, it is what most people use today. And I'm one of the things I was the most surprised by after being there for 20 years is when I left, and the reality of that, because I never appreciated it enough when I was at SolidWorks. But when I left and we started OnShape and we started looking for non-SolidWorks companies, it was harder than I thought. You don't find a lot of Pro E, you don't find a lot of CATIA, you don't find a lot of Inventor, but you find a lot of SolidWorks regardless of the industry for mechanical CAD.
Okay. Just for our users out there, we glitched for about 5 seconds. So I don't know if you noticed that, Joe, but
I didn't. No, I thought actually you might have switched for a second, but it wasn't too bad on my end. Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, and then interesting. So what on this page, if you really want, Visual Cam, I think is one of the more interesting up here. It's brand new. What you do see in the App Store that I think is really cool is that if you're new and you have a new product and you're building it from scratch and you're just launching it, our app store is really the place they go. So Visual Cam is brand new. They wrote this cam application from scratch, and it is a professional grade tool. You're, you know, as Fusion user, you have great cam, and this product is, you know, but what this product is it's the only cam application in the that we call pro grade. You know, it's got 2.5 axis, 3 axis, multiple strategies, all the control you need, everything you expect with if you're going to use this professionally, right? But it's on a, you know, it's a true in the browser application. Your code's being generated, the verifications in the cloud. It's a first in the industry for a lot of stuff that they're doing. So
well, that's obviously very useful. Oh, they mentioned monthly subscription. Now, is this a monthly subscription based upon a month? For instance, $99. So I could subscribe for a month, use it, and then unsubscribe.
Yeah, if they any of the application, it's really up to the vendors. They can do monthly subscription. Some of them even have, like, if the rendering products will do credit, so you buy credits and use your rendering credits. A monthly subscription means you can subscribe, unsubscribe, subscribe. Yeah, but it's your choice.
Joe, how about giving us about 5 minutes of a little quick tutorial for those who've never used OnShape, and then let's talk about Magic Leap after that.
Absolutely. All right. So let me know when you see my screen.
I see it.
All right. So I won't go full screen. I apologize. Maybe I should. What do you think? Leave it this way. Are we good?
Well, we're at 720p, so bigger the screen, the better, if that works for you. You can stretch that too without having to go.
Well, I'll do this. Let me know if you think that's better.
That's better.
Okay. So the reason why I start with a blank screen is I do kind of want to just, you know, this can be super quick, Michael, but let's go this. First of all, any computer in the world, there's nothing to install. So you just have to go to OnShape. I go to cad.onshape.com. And if I hadn't logged in on that in the last hour or two, it's going to ask me to log in. And I literally can go to a classroom and start teaching this product to students or whoever. And actually, you know what I want to do? Let me do this. Just log in as a different user. Probably I got more interesting data there. Oh, here you go. I got lots of accounts now. But what's great about this is I just I did the equivalent of installing, licensing, provisioning, whatever you want to call it. It did it all, and there really is no requirements on your local hardware other than, you know, when I just opened up a document, I loaded a little bit of data in the browser, but most of it, you know, we've got a very delicate dance between what's running in your browser, what's being done on the server. It does not require a very high-end bandwidth. I mean, Hangouts is using a lot of bandwidth. You and I are using it with Hangouts a lot.
I was going to say, the fact is that we're trying to run both of these is a testament to the performance of.
But OnShape doesn't need a high bandwidth. OnShape doesn't do a constant. There's not a lot going on. My coworkers cringe when I say this, but I always say, if you can get email, you can use OnShape. So whatever device you're on, if you're getting email, you're basically connected, and OnShape will run. And, you know, obviously it's nicer to have a faster connection, but you know, I opened up this throttle. I just like the way this throttle looks, but I was in a documents page, and that's where all my stuff is. And I have folders, I have organizational tools, I can do search, I find all my stuff, but I never worry about where my model is, what drive, what computer. It's always when I log in, my stuff is there. And then if I want to do some things to the model, you know, it's a 3D model and it's parts, assemblies, and drawings. The typical workflow is you're going to go into a design and we have this recipe that I mentioned before. So some user has already built this, and I can always interrogate it. I can change values. I can create configurations out of this. But this shows you kind of the step-by-step process of how they built the part. And I'm just kind of navigating through each feature to see, you know, it's a nice little tool for understanding and or working with the model, but this is what they would call feature-based modeling. Again, when I do something like, let's say, I'll modify this. Actually, let's do something.
Yeah. Can I interrupt for just a
absolutely.
second?
Yeah.
So, as you know, I work with Fusion 360, and one of the things, it also has a feature-based process.
Yep.
The more features you add, especially more complicated features, it seems to slog the system, and I don't have an extremely slow machine. The fact is that at least some of the models that I've put up on, they're not that sophisticated. I notice the performance doesn't seem to bog as I add more features.
Well, where's the work? Where's the work being done?
In the cloud.
Right. I mean, well, I don't want to be snarky, but I mean, we had a lot of problems we wanted to solve. There's a reason we did the cloud. And I know that, sometimes, depending on your perspective, and we don't say the cloud that much naturally, but we don't want that problem. We built there are no versions in our product. I know that we have some marketing that says parametric 2.0 and all that, but there is no 2.0 version of our product. We just have one. That was just something that really was just a slogan, to be honest. Yeah, there's just OnShape, and OnShape is always updated. In fact, we update every 3 weeks or so, which Fusion does too. I think any modern system has ways of updating their software, right? But
the big difference is you just sign in and you're
right. I've been in the middle of a demo and all of a sudden new functionality shows up. And for better or worse, that's happened. Now, what is really cool is that what was I going to say? We update all the time. Oh, I had something I was going to say.
Sorry for.
Nah, well, it won't be the first. It won't be the first or the last. Oh, well, yeah. All right. So, I know what I was going to say. So, but all of your data, this was a real hard part. Yeah. You talked about a complicated feature list and things can get slow, and they do in SolidWorks. We wanted to tackle performance. So we knew that, first of all, you couldn't have a super high end bandwidth compute. If there was a requirement for a great connection, and if we were slow, it was a non-starter. And we didn't know if we could achieve that in the early days. And so we did. The other one was about, you never upgrade, you never update your data. All the data, all the features, all of your stuff in OnShape is also current, which is another difference in a typical mechanical CAD system. People go through, they update their software, and then they have to open up all their models and they update all their models. And there's a long upgrade process. That's why companies will actually postpone it every other year, because they don't want to take a day or a month or however long it takes them just to upgrade the software because of all the ramifications. So, this is just the right way to do things. Sorry. So.
No, that's fine. So, basically from what I can see here, your I wouldn't say call your table, your menu system's off on the left.
Sorry.
And you pulled in a pair of glasses.
Yeah, this is actually a production pair of glasses someone created. So we can take a look at this.
So let's talk about that a little bit very quickly. Do you have something like SketchUp's warehouse, or is that something that's going to be in the works, or the Thingiverse or something like that?
Well, our product inherently, if you go to, sorry, I apologize for clicking too many places. So I'm back to my documents page.
Okay.
Remember, everyone in OnShape, everybody that's using OnShape is in OnShape, and files aren't spread out. There are no files. Things aren't spread out. So by definition, we already are that. And no one's seeing my stuff right now because I've decided to keep all my stuff private. But if I decided to share it, I could share it. I could make item, and then I can make it public. Okay. And if I do that, they show up here. And now here, you're going to see, let's make these a list, and then let's sort by modified. This is how many parts have just been created in the last minute in OnShape. And typically there's hundreds, if not thousands. Yeah, anyone can see them. So these are all the people that have made something public, or that are working in the free version, or, for a variety of reasons, they may put things here. And of course, you're going to see things that are shared with you as well. And it's all about sharing. We don't have files, but you and I would share a model with you. You don't copy it, and I don't have to zip it up, and I don't have to worry about whether you have the software. You get a link, you click on it, and now you have access to that particular thing too.
Well, I have an instance of it. I don't modify your file.
It depends on what I would like you to do. We don't
So you have some control features.
Absolutely. If I use the share button, so if I want to give you permission to modify this, I'll skip massacring your email address, but pretend I got it right. And then I can decide, I could actually make you the owner, so I can transfer ownership to you. I can give you view only, or I can allow you to edit. I can also decide I don't want you to export, but I don't mind if you share. I want to see your comments. You cannot delete. but maybe I want to let you link to it as well. And as soon as I got to put a valid email address. I hit share, you show up in the list. Okay. And by the way, I can always take people away. So if I don't want you in the list, like Bill's probably going to hate me. Bill literally, if he tried to open it, he no longer can open it. But it's not a copy or an instance. And this is back to Magic Leap, because this is precisely why we're going to talk about Magic Leap. Because Bill was, we're all about a single source of truth, a master definition instead of copies. So we all just work on the same thing. Unless you really want to make a copy, you can, but it's only if you need to and want to, not because you have to. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So, well, the reason is that I've actually found a few parts that people have allowed to export, and I have used them. And actually, I don't have mine up, so I won't bring it up. But
yeah, I mean, we could collaborate right now. I could bring you in here and you start working on it. You show up like in Google Docs with your icon, and I'd know that you're in here. I could see what you're doing. Anything you do, I would see. And if I didn't want you to do something, I would either version it so that you can't modify it. In fact, if you want to look at the versions, here's the version list of this document. And you can see that there's a bunch of versions and there's different nomenclature on the versions. But these were saying that each one of these, I can always go back and view what that looked like at that point. I can't modify it, but I can view it. I can restore to that point. I can create a new branch off of it. It's an entire record. It's an entire record of everything that's ever been done to this system, including the other one that's super cool is this is the undo list. So this is just another thing about our architecture where we have features. Okay. And this is my feature list, and I build features just like any good, parametric, any good professional CAD tool will be a feature-based manager or feature-based tool. But one of the things that I use a lot also is your undo, right? When you want to do undo, redo. But the problem with most systems of undo or redo is that if you quit out of the system and come back in, it's gone, right? But for us, it's always there, and it's stored in the version graph. So I can get the entire list of not only the features, but the undo list, and that's a multi-user undo list. So if multiple users were in here doing things together, you would be able to see what each user has done together.
So obviously, the obvious question here is, doesn't this take a lot of storage? I
don't know. For us, those are issues that we just don't care about. Those aren't, we have, our architecture is really complicated. I may have even said this on the last time we met, but I talked to a couple of our developers that wrote previous products, and now they're actually doing kind of the similar, same functionality again in SolidWorks, and I go, or in OnShape, sorry. And I go, Tommy, isn't it getting easier now that you've done this? This is the third time that you've created that feature, if not the fourth time for a CAD system. And, they all say this is probably the hardest from a developer's perspective. So things like storage and size and shit, you'll notice that in our documents page, there's no such thing as size, because it's just something that there's no file, it's data. There is no size of something, but we don't care how much size as much stuff as you want put in your model, and we are kind of, this is certainly not the use case that I would say is that we're promoting, but you can upload and put anything in your model. This is just an image. This was rendered with Reality Server, by the way, I think, or cool. One render, and that's nice image out there. But you can go up and use our documents are just storage. You can just go up and pick something. I don't really have anything good. And if I want to store this in my document, it's now going to be in my document. And if I share this model with you, you'll now have access to this MP4 that I put in or PDF file. And if you keep that if you consider that with the version release management part, that we manage all this data along with the CAD data, just part of the system.
Yeah, that's nice. Obviously, Fusion 360 does a little bit of that as well. So are you using AWS as your backend?
Yeah, we're on AWS. You have our own stuff. It's a complicated architecture. It's really developed so that everything is done so it's performant. And that you're not getting bogged down. And when you log in, depending on where you are in the world, you're going to be hitting, the server that's closest to you in the world. And there's, we're spread out all over the place so that, we have worldwide people using it, and we want to make sure that, there's no place on the globe that's slow. So
would you mind mentioning how many subscribers you have at this point?
Well, I can't. I would love to. I mean, we are privately funded, and that's the only thing I can't tell you is exactly where we're at from a paid users, subscriber revenue perspective. And it's just something we can't release. You could, you want to guess? Go to, it's a guess, but you can start going in public and looking around there and seeing what kind of activity. Go to, if you look in the forums, you'll see that it's very active. But I can give you a hint. Our goal is to be the product that most professional engineering companies use, right? And it's taken off. And most of our users come from Solidworks. It's not that we're trying to go after Solidworks, but that is what most people use. They're coming from that product. Mm-hmm. I think that I was with Solidworks before they had a single seat, and it grew to $1 billion a year product, and I saw how fast that grew, and this feels like it's growing faster. If that help, but can't take, that's just, unfortunately, you'll have to find out. If you're seeing a lot of announcements, you'll see on our website every couple days. I think we're showing other, we've had a lot of customers for a while, but getting them to do case studies and let them talk about what we're doing. We've had multi-million dollar or $1 million, I should say, I think is the way. See, I want to know what John, I got to always watch what our CEO says. So we've had, say, $1 million orders of OnShape. We've had hundreds of seats of software. If not, we did an install of, sure. So MITx was one of the edX programs. I don't know if you've ever dabbled or familiar with some of the edX stuff that's going on in the higher universities.
Yes, I've heard of it.
Yeah. Well, they were doing a 3D printing class. They wanted to do a generative design 3D printing class. So they had multiple softwares that they were allowed, that when you sign up for it, they had a lot of different pieces of software that the students are going to get access to. OnShape was the CAD portion of it. And I think we had a day to provision the entire, user base, which was like 1,000 users or something like that. And it took us an hour to set up 1,000 people to just instantly start using the product. So that was a big deal for us. And other people probably don't care, but if you're using a traditional system, I mean, I used to have to show up to if I have to use anything else that cares, I would have to show up 2 days ahead of time and make sure every machine had the right OS and the right hardware before I even thought about installing software.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay, Joe, big question.
Yes.
What were you guys doing out at Magically?
All right. How do you want to start that question?
Well, you mentioned that you had a video for me that you had to show yourself. So one of my questions, I'll lead it by saying, I did watch LeapCon, and I noticed, obviously, the name OnShape, and I saw a little demo, but I have to say I wasn't that impressed with it. It looked unique, but I thought there was a little sluggishness. Things didn't seem to come in and out, and having worked with OnShape, I was just wondering where the hangups were. And obviously some people thought I was being too critical. And you actually came on and said, hey, I've been doing these for some time, because I made the point that, maybe none of this really exists, and they just paid all of you to get on stage with them. Some people didn't like me saying that. But you said that you might have a video of you actually demonstrating this to others, not on the stage there. And
I have videos. I won't say it was me. Here's the thing. So Michael, you're a lot more experienced in this topic than I am, especially when it comes to how to capture this, because I am still learning. So I'm challenged on how to take what I have on the AR device and show it. If you don't have the goggles on, I'm still learning how to create that material. So what I would say is, here's what we did at Magic Leap. We had a booth. I was there, unfortunately, for 2 days, so I didn't get to see anything, but I was doing nothing but putting goggles on and off somebody constantly for every 15 minutes for 2 straight days. And this was a live demo. They used our product. It wasn't, and it's not sluggish at all. It's interactive, just like for us, you got to if you're still seeing me, but for us, we run on the iPhone, or we run on Android, or we run on tablets, the product, right? And for us, Magic Leap is simply another device. It's really no different. It's the full product in that device. Now, so
so you're using their browser. Okay. Actually, I don't see you. So if you wouldn't mind going back to yourself, you're still back.
Sorry, I need to stop sharing, don't I? That's probably what I need to do.
That's okay.
How's that? Better?
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then if you want to go ahead and queue up your video. So you actually have more experience than I do with the Magic Leap as far as...
Actually, my daughter has the most experience. We should go get her. Yeah. All right. Well, look, what I'm going to do is I'll share my screen again and show you some videos. I think that's probably... Okay. I have a bunch of snippets is the best I can do, if you don't mind.
No, that's fine. Show me like a 30-second one, and then we'll talk. So if I understood you correctly, the reason why that you were able to get this up and running so quickly with Magic Leap is because Magic Leap also has a browser type environment that would be easy to hook into. Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, I would say, first of all, we probably could get OnShape to run on any device. So let's start there. So I don't think there's anything special necessarily that got us on Magic Leap over other HoloLens or something. The reason, but although Magic Leap has taken the idea of, that's the thing I liked about the Magic Leap so far, and this is what you have to tell me, is it's 100% self-contained, right? And you're not tethered to a laptop or anything like this, and so you are walking around and theoretically going anywhere. So I mean, they're using, so maybe that's not unique. This is what I'm not going to say, but that aspect of they're very hooked into not only what's running on the device, but constantly talking to the internet, talking to the cloud, that communication. We already do devices like Android, like iOS, which are very similar in that respect. So for us, we actually used, I think, for now anyway, some of our technology and our client for the iOS device was the work, that infrastructure allowed us to use that for Magic Leap, and so it's very simple to go to these different devices for us because we don't have to install software and run locally is really the point.
Well, like I said, Magic Leap has put hooks in so that you can run things out of the cloud. So clearly I can see why this was easy for you to get up and running.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of both. It is. We're communicating to our server in Magic Leap, where we do have a little bit of a client. I don't know how much of our architecture is even nailed down yet because there's a bunch of approaches that you can take. And I saw a lot we're using Unity, and we probably could have thought about using Unity. They've got a whole nother development environment now. So we actually took something that we had already done with our iOS infrastructure, and it was almost that got us in there with very minimal amount of work, from the client perspective.
Well, one of the things that I noticed in my experience with the Magic Leap, better than I expected, as I mentioned early on, but I did know the loading time between apps was very sluggish. And so the only thing I can think of is that they don't really do a dynamic loading and unloading. They literally swap out large chunks, and they probably could alleviated that with adding more static memory to the device itself and doing swapping in that manner. So one case in point is their demo from Weta that they have now. And I'm assuming you played it. I can't remember, Doctor something or other. And I noticed coming in and out of it, it took literally like 30 seconds, which can be agonizing in today's age. And clearly one of the advantages of OnShape is that, boom, it's there when you're up and running. And so to see a little bit of lagged in your demo, and again, maybe it was just what you had on stage. That's why I'm eager to see this little 30-second. But I noticed when they actually were moving their hands, it took a few seconds before. Well,
yeah, and you're still well. So here's the problem: is that when you're wearing the goggles, you don't have that lag, but they have a terminal that you have to, if you want to see what they're seeing and display it on your own computer screen, that kills their performance. So that's the problem. Is that so to create a video, this is where the problem is we didn't do a lot of it yet because it really doesn't do it justice. When you have the goggles, when you have the device on, there is no lag. As soon as you turn on the terminal to show what I'm seeing on the terminal, performance is halved, if not worse. And you'll see in our videos, everything isn't the same experience when you're using it, in that respect.
Now, I noticed in one of the scenarios there were multiple people. So
yeah,
as long as they all have the Magic Leap headset on, they all seem to perform
Yeah,
new
there is no performance issues that I can see on this. So we set it up. Let me describe what we did. We set up two different scenarios. Now, it is OnShape running in the device, but we did not turn on all of OnShape yet. So this is still not ready for, we've got users that actually want to use what's there already, but it's a review and markup scenario at this point. But we will, the hard work's done mostly. What we really are just doing is, how do I want to turn on the parameters in the, how do I want to display the UI? We just haven't decided how we want to turn some of the stuff on, but it is full OnShape. So what I think is the coolest part for me is that I can be in OnShape using it on my laptop. I can have other collaborators all using it on the Magic Leap headsets. Any change I make, they see. And it's not about me having to upload or convert it or do anything. It's just we are all looking at the exact same thing. And they're doing markup. I will see their markup on OnShape, and we will then start to do some editing on the Magic Leap as well. And I won't predict any performance issues because we're not trying to do anything on the device that requires heavy lifting. It's already doing that.
Again, as mentioned, knowing how you do OnShape, I was a little surprised to see the lags, but now it makes full sense.
I think that is 100% about and I could get the instructions of when you display it on your flat 2D computer screen, that is not the efficient, that cuts back on those frame rates drastically.
Yeah, and fully understand that because obviously, since they're not running what you would call it, a standard HDMI feed, they probably have to do a little bit more processing in order to give you something, and that probably degrades the performance.
Yeah, I looked at the instructions of this long, and I haven't done it yet. So there's a lot. So I mean, I have someone else put that together. Yeah.
And I noticed that too. It's not if you've ever used any other VR device. No, in fact, the new I think the Oculus Go now has a feature in it that can now stream out. And a lot of times what I've been doing with mobile devices is using, for instance, with Android, using Chromecast, with iOS devices going out to the Apple TV, and it works almost flawlessly. So they need to have a feature similar to that doesn't tax the system, but gives you not only control to give you an HDMI output or even a stream, but control over the occlusion, because there's no reason they have transparency in a video. You should have good solid objects because you're recording it for people to see. And oh well, that's my own point on that. But thank you, Joe. I'll take your word for it. We kind of run out of time.
Yeah. So I told you wouldn't want me to talk. So yeah.
No, that's fine. So I've got to get in there and play with a little more. I've been using 360 for 3 years now. And I don't use it as often. I'm doing a lot of VR, AR stuff. And so my final question is, are you doing anything on any other devices? Because I can see where OnShape could be beneficial in VR. You create yourself a display room, and then you put your objects in it, especially with the new Oculus Quest coming out, which is an all-in-one unit. So I could see possibly VR being useful in these areas as well.
So I'll take one more minute of your time. We have a close relationship with Magic Leap. That's why we're on Magic Leap. And you asked when we had the devices, we'd known about it for quite a while. They're a customer of ours, but they're friends of ours because I think that Ronnie, the CEO of Magic Leap, and John Herstick, our CEO, have known each other. He was a customer at Solidworks with his previous company. So there's a relationship. That relationship is where we got.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So you had some time with it because I'm assuming OnShape was probably their design software for their products.
Well, they have a lot of tools, but yes, they use us along with a lot of stuff. Yeah, I would I'll be careful about that. But and as far as other devices, I think we're very conservative. We didn't do anything yet because we're driven by what our customers are asking for. And that it's. As soon as they start asking for stuff, we are going to go to whatever makes sense. And we're going to learn a lot with this one, because I think this, I've already been out to 4 customers showing this, and I've been kind of surprised by the reaction. I had one, I will tell you, I was at someone right after Magic Leap. I literally took the device, and on my way home, I stopped by their facility to visit them. and they wanted to buy the device right then. They were on the website about to purchase them, and I had to stop them because we need to polish up our app a little bit, and it's not on the App Store yet. And I went, I mean, just hold on. But I mean, so the reaction's been a lot more enthusiastic than I would have predicted. Yeah.
Well, I can imagine why. I mean, it's one thing to look at a screen, but having worked in VR and AR and doing my own mixed reality, I actually have a mixed reality headset of my own that works off of a Intel Nook. So mine's not round; it's square. But
well, I'm assuming this stuff's going to get really, really small, right? I mean, the whole point is this stuff's going to evolve very quickly. You know,
well, it's never going to be a pair of glasses.
No.
No. Not for a few years yet.
No, of course.
I mean, yeah, you're going to have to do a lot more lens-wise as well as projectors. But the whole point is, and I told my wife this, you don't go scuba diving with your glasses. You know, you have a headset or an eyepiece or that's made for the environment you're working in. You don't wear your glasses when you're doing welding. You know, there are reasons for that, and you know, people need to understand that we don't want necessary glasses. We want the ability to view things in a realistic manner, and as long as they're not something that burden us. And I don't think the Magic Leap is that much of a burden. If you're a designer, you know, the fact is that we have to sit in front of a laptop or an LCD screen right now. Imagine before this came out. Remember the CRTs? That weighed 75, depending how big, 150. You needed a burly, strong guy to come move it off, but we still had them. Now we've got LCD panels. Pretty soon we'll have glasses. The whole point is we progress, and you know, people who are impatient, you know, I guess they're not old enough yet. To me, this is all like candy in a store, and I haven't actually had an opportunity to try the Magic Leap. A little too expensive still for my taste. But if I were doing a lot of design work, as earlier today, as I mentioned, I've been working with the Wild, and that's a cool product because it also is going to be looking at multiple platforms. They're the one that I tried the Magic Leap unit from. And the fact is, to have multiple people in a VR space looking at a design, working with a design is wow. And I can understand why the person said, I'm going to go buy one.
Yeah,
now.
that's exactly.
The collaborative function of seeing something that's not a tangible object is.
They saw it from a sales perspective. Their sales guy was the one that said, I get this. I'm going to show this to every client. You know, he wanted to go on site with the clients and show them, you know, take the OnShape model, pop it right in place and say, you know, let their customer experience it right there. And that was what they were sold on.
Well, and that was one of the things I complained about Magic Leap and Roni is that get out of the comic books. This product at its price, medical, engineering, that's what people are going to eat this up. And I'm glad that they had you out there to.
There were a lot. I think they didn't get the press, but everywhere I was at was more, you know, there was a surgical application right next to me, and there was Sketchup was right around the corner. So I mean, there was a lot of engineering applications were there.
I'm going to talk about Sketchup in a moment. I guess you're aware that they also have a cloud-based function now. You probably have known that. I didn't. So, so obviously everybody realizes the advantage of it. Well, Joe, I appreciate your time, and you're welcome to stay on, but I'm going to kind of run through my items now because I wanted to get off by 5:30, and I'm going to really be pushing it. So one of the things that I'm going to be covering is obviously SolidWorks, but I know about as much about SolidWorks as you do. And so I'm just going to kind of go run through a few items. So you're welcome to stay on, or you got something better to do?
I'll stay on for this. If you don't mind, I'll stay on for the SolidWorks one. I need to be educated. I'd like to see what's going on.
Well, I'll just show you their website. I don't use it, and Chris was the one that used it. And now that I know that he's more of an OnShape person, because, you know, frankly, SolidWorks cost a lot of money for us poor single guys. Okay, let me move on. All right, well, thank you, Joe. Let's move on to our other items. So we've got some updates from the past. Clearly, one of the items, let me get my menu over. Oh, needs. So what's new? Well, obviously, you can see a ton of features. And the sad thing is you can go out and learn more about it. But as we found out with Joe, features are just growing year by year. There wasn't anything that really stuck out with me. One thing I did notice, just like that we saw with OnShape, is they also have a VR AR component. Where did I see that? Now it's disappeared on me. So they are also looking at the AR and VR component of this. But as Joe mentioned, these are still client-based tools that actually show up on your desktop. And having worked with Fusion 360, which also has a cloud component, even though I have thought in the past it's great to have everything on a desktop, I'm starting to rethink that. And the reason for that is that I can't match some of the processing power that some of these systems. And having worked with Chris, who works with Solidworks, I don't work with it. He has basically had to build beefy machines to use it. And then he became, what would you call it, an evangelist for OnShape, and clearly recognized even, their subscription is very decent if you've looked at some of the pricing on it. And, in fact, what's funny is that any product that if you go out and says how to buy, and you have to request a quote or contact a salesperson, then it's too much. That's what I've learned. And that's what a lot of products in this industry, 3D scanners, from companies like Artec, when you have to actually request a price, then it's obviously too much for you. So you're going to have to rechange that. If you have to ask for it, it's too much for you. So that's what I think here. I mentioned, Joe, that I don't use it. Here it is, the new extended reality exporter function. It's an exporter, which means unlike what Joe is telling me, this is going to be able to work directly in an OnShape unit. Joe, could you do me a favor and mute your mic?
Oh, sorry, yes, sorry.
That's okay. What happens is the AGC pushes up the noise on it. So what you do is you export it, but then again, I've been able to do that with Fusion 360. You export it as an OBJ or with one of the exporter tools there. You bring in another, you clean it up a little bit, and then you import the model. It's multiple steps. From what I'm understanding from Joe is that OnShape will have this feature that basically you just bring up an object you've got in the OnShape cloud and it shows up. Now, I don't know what it would take to convince OnShape and Joe's team to make sure this is in VR and other products. We'll see, but these are the type of products I think are going to be the killer products for AR and VR. Sorry, not games. Sorry, not comic books or fantasy stuff. Those people don't have the money to buy the product. So we'll see. I think Microsoft had the right lean on this when they went directly to universities with their product and medical system, and they've already got a leap on it. So, it's kind of funny because Roni, I think's background was in medical equipment. But we'll see where it's going. I've already put out a tweet saying that the product was better than I expected it to be. I can't afford that, but neither can I afford a HoloLens. But we'll see. Microsoft has their new unit coming out early 2019, and we'll see what kind of pricing. All right, a couple other updates. One of the products that I just kind of stumbled upon is SimLab Soft. They've now had Composer 9. It's been out for a while. But the main feature that I use of it is that I can bake in shadows. They have a new feature now that I just tried out. You can get a 30-day demo. So I'm still, and also a little hint, if you wait around November, December, they have a good Christmas discount. So keep that in mind, and I'm just kind of waiting until that comes out so I can upgrade my 8.2 to version 9. But the feature that I'm interested in is this one. Let's see if they show it here. Oh, did I already pass it up? They have baking, which allows you to bake in textures, but the way that they do it is they literally create new materials. So you have like 100 materials to go along with an object. Well, that's a pain in the butt because either you have to go through and manually create a large atlas of it, which means you have to go back and redo the UVs, which is a big pain. But they have this new feature very much like Unreal where you can do light mapping. Here's light baking directly on the material. The sad thing is when I exported it, it didn't seem to export it as an FBX or an OBJ file. But I did find a way if you go into the VR that it exported the textures, so I haven't gone any further, and I'll have to ask them why you're not allowing standard light mapping, which means just having another material. So if you had another set of UVs, like Unity supports as well as Unreal, you'd have your light map. So we'll have to see why. hopefully they're not trying to keep it all in their own ecosystem, because that's kind of disappointing, because I didn't buy it for that. Essentially, I bring in SketchUp items, and one of the items in my, where am I at? Oh my God, my 3D tech closet is how to use the new tool that, let's see, and maybe Joe, while you're still there, maybe you can think about this. You know that Unreal is a product now that brings in models from like SketchUp, but it would be kind of cool if OnShape or somebody would build an exporter so that I could bring them directly into Unreal to have live use. And if you hang on, I'll show you a little demo. It's really neat. Essentially creates an intermediate file point and allows that feature to be put in there. So are you familiar with the Unreal graphics engine, Joe?
I mean, I'm familiar with it, but not intimately. Just I know of it, I would say. Yeah.
Well, one of the big things is, and even though you talked about the iRay renderer, they're all multiple second renders per frame. Cool thing about real-time engines is both in Unity with their real-time or their HD pipeline, but Unreal has had an HD pipeline for some time. You can render very realistic stuff in architectural work and even standard modeling, solid modeling, if you export it properly, to make it look very realistic, very good in these systems. And now that they're going to be supporting RTX very soon, this will give you the ability to create videos in, gosh, almost real time.
I mean, is it global illumination? Are they supporting true? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
So, I mean, that's some time. They have the ability to bake in static lighting, but if you've got a beefy machine, especially for video work, you can keep all your light dynamic, and I've done this a few times, but we're going to show a little bit later how easy it is. Right now, it's still in beta. I don't know what their final price will be on it, but we'll get to that in a moment. So this is why I use SlimNet, because I can bake everything into it. Sad thing is it creates a lot of materials. The good thing is if you bake everything in, then you don't have to use a lot of lighting in your real-time engines. So that's why I use it. And speaking of products, we mentioned SketchUp.
By the way, those
SketchUp
guys
2.
are really sorry to, you know that they're in Jordan too, right? SimLab Soft.
Yes.
They're really interesting company. So
yeah, I was going to make a point that they also have an OnShape import capability as well, which I haven't used yet. But yeah, I do know that they're from Jordan. I've talked to their CEO a couple of times, not an interview, about some of the features that I would like. One thing I said, can you please make an atlas for your material instead of a bunch of little ones? And so they're going to look into it. But I said, yeah, because it really burdens my flow, and that's why I use the product. So they actually work really well. They've got good pricing structure. They've got both an annual subscription as well as a one-time. But clearly you'll have an upgrade price for each version that comes out. But remember, they have sales mid-year and end of year. Keep that in mind. I didn't say it though. All right, on the SketchUp again, this is not really brand new. It's been out for a little while, but they also have in fact, the free version now is only a cloud-based, which kind of disappointing because I like their previous version, their 2017 Make version. However, if you plan to use this with Unreal, you need the Pro version because you have to bring in the plugin. And the plugin, because my memory has slipped, what is the plugin? Datasmith is the plugin tool that they use. And they have this as well as for AutoCAD, and they're going to be supporting a few other applications like Rhino. So they're really looking at the architectural market because, frankly, it gives you really cool real-time, very realistic demos. So not only can you create video from it, but you can also do VR walkthroughs. And I've been very impressed with Unreal from that perspective. And if you follow the show, you know I've created a few things that are kind of on the hyper-realistic end. All right, so let's move into our technology item. So here we're talking about AR. We talked about Magic Leap. Well, imagine having a little type of device, and I've got a little video to show. Let's see. Actually, I had a video for SolidWorks too, so I'll just skip that. All right, so let's play this little video.
Hi everyone, I'm Riley Gardner and I'm with Super D. Today we're in Super D's California offices and we're going to explain a little bit more about our new product, the 3D Box. The 3D Box was designed by Super D in our labs in Shenzhen, China to be a new and innovative 3D entertainment accessory. We incorporated a number of advanced 3D technologies into this product. First of all, there's the LCD display module up here. This also incorporates a liquid crystal lens, one of the first of its kind used on consumer products. In addition, there is a transmissive reflective layer here, which, as you can see from the side, it enables a 3D image to be broadcasted into this virtual space. We use this camera right here to track the position of the user's eyes, and we actually re-render the 3D image data in real time based on the user's position to ensure that the person is getting the best possible 3D effect. And the coolest thing, all this happens without glasses.
So how do I use it? Starting with opening the kickstand and pushing the button, it will pop open nice and smoothly. The next thing we're going to do is download the 3D Box app from the App Store.
Well, the rest of the video you can capture yourself, but that gives you a good idea. In fact, many of the what do you want to call it, augmented mixed reality glasses work off a principle like this, essentially either reflected into waveguides or off a semi-mirrored material. Here they're doing that, but what makes this product unique is the fact is that it has an infrared detector where your eyes are at. If you remember the original Amazon phone, this was one of the features that they supposedly had offered, where it would detect your eyes and create that same 3D look. But here it looks like, obviously, you can see little objects floating in space. Now, what's interesting, they say it's for 3D movies, but 3D movies don't have basically, they're stereo, meaning you only have one view per eye. You can't actually look around the object. So I don't know how that feature would be beneficial to there. Now with 3D or video games, or let's say Joe's product, OnShape, I could see this being kind of cool. But it doesn't look like it's very big, a little bit like a, I don't know, about like a iPad mini or something, clan shape. But it'd be kind of cool to have a little floating object there. I have no idea on the price. What's interesting is that video and some of these features came out in 2016. But I'm only hearing about it now, so I'm wondering how well it's done in China and how much it cost. It's like $200, $300. That's not too much. Could be kind of cool little product, especially for displays or taken to a client to see an object in 3D without actually having to print it. That would be kind of neat. So
there's a product called Looking Glass. Are you familiar with them? Very similar, same form factor as far as size goes, another holographic display, which reminded me of it, yeah. Very similar to this? Well, different design completely. They're $500, they're selling it. So I'm kind of dying to check it out. I'll send you the link. If you haven't seen
send me a link. I'll look it up and bring it up next show. Yeah. But there you go. That's the first time I've seen something like that. And clearly, if we can make these lower cost products that you can take to a client, I think they should do fairly well. Sad thing is, you don't open up, you've probably got, I don't know, maybe 35, 40 degrees of viewing there. And if it only works with one individual, it's not going to be good for clients. You'd have to put it in front of their face and let them look at it by themselves. So, yeah, there could be some weaknesses. I have not seen any of the reviews on it, so I'd have to do a little more information on it, but that just came out, obviously, not too long ago. All right, on to the next item. And actually, this is the company, Tron XYZ. Of course, another company from the Far East. Let's see where they're located. Yep, Shenzhen, China. It's funny, they've got a great pool of money, but they come out with a lot of interesting, weird products that nobody in this country would back. And so I'm glad that somebody is supporting some of these unique products. Keeps the world going, I guess. All right, on to the Mitsubishi. So many of you know they make cars, but they also have heavy-duty motor devices, as well as a plastic and machining. But the big point is that they're using 3D printing as well for metal and plastic. But what caught my attention is that they're using a new technique. Let's see if I can bring this picture up a little more. Where they literally use a wire system here. So they like do CNC-based I wouldn't say soldering. Geez, why is the word not coming to me? Oh boy. Well, that's not good. Does it tell me so that I don't have to guess? Well, essentially they use a laser to heat up the wiring, which creates layers and welding. There we go. I don't know why that was hard. But they do kind of like automated welding, which I think is unique. And then they just stream a wire system in there and they create, instead of using plastic, they use metal. That's kind of interesting. And if this is the format right here, the conventional, obviously it looks, well, very interesting. I do not have an idea how much it costs, but any type of metal 3D printing is, I think the cheapest one's $10,000, $15,000. It's a very small format, metal sinterer, but laser sinterer, and then clearly they escalate into hundreds of $1,000s. But they are changing things, as I've mentioned on shows previously. BMW and who else? Audi, they're all going to using some type of sintering process for small components now. Clearly they must have reached a point where creating components through some of these devices is cheaper than creating molds and then getting them casted. So pretty interesting. Okay, moving on to the next item. So this one I'm going to spend a little time on, and I've got a few videos, but I thought this was interesting. If you followed the show over a period of time, one of the things that I covered back early on, I think it was in 2014, about 4 years ago, is how 3D was being used in dentists. My particular dentist back in San Luis Obispo, California, had bought an iTero 3D scanner, had a company out of Santa Maria who did the milling of the teeth. And so he was all set up. In fact, he used the iTero to do the Invisalign. So he was ahead of his time, but it appears that this is really moving forward. So I thought I'd do a little bit of research on the companies that are out there. And I've got a few videos that I'm going to bring up. One of them I looked up was 3Shape. So we'll go ahead and play that video.
In this video, we'll show you how to scan models for a single crown using eScanner. Before scanning, please...
And we won't go through all of it, but it'll just give you an idea. eShape makes a lot of assortment of 3D plotters and scanners, as well as software.
Click the Scan button to continue. The message, Insert the Preparation Arch, will appear in the Scan It Dental window. Please place the correct model, affixed with blue tack, onto one of the plates, which were packaged with the scanner. Then insert it into the scanner. Remember that it is not necessary to click Next if you have enabled the Auto Start option in the settings. In that case, the scanner will start scanning automatically. To ensure good scan results, do not block or disturb the scanner arm and object during its operation. After a short scanning, the pre-scan model will appear on the screen. You will be prompted to mark the preparation by placing a point on the margin line with the mouse on the buccal side of the tooth. Then you have the option to choose the shape of the scan area. In order to scan the whole model, click the green Select All button.
So like I mentioned, I'm not going to go through the complete video. Gives you a good idea. The important thing is they use a blue laser and some very high resolution cameras in order to do line scanning. And then if you notice, they actually place the denture or whatever piece of dentures or a molding or whatever the case onto a platform, and the platform is gimbaled like a multi-axis CNC machine in order to get all the different crevices, and it's all automated. The sad thing is it's not something that you want to go out and buy for your own 3D scanning because they're extremely expensive. But if you're in the medical or the dental business, might be well worth it. However, you normally with these kind of scanners here, you have to either take impressions, make a solid from that, or do a negative scan and then using the software create a positive from that. But you have to have some type of impression or product to work from the or a tangible product to work from. And then obviously their software is important. Then there's another company you may be familiar with, Shining 3D, who makes a bunch of 3D scanners. Well, they've got into the dental market. Notice the similarity, same kind of little scanning system here. And I've got a little video to show you on how similar it is.
Today, Shining 3D presents you the revolutionary dental scanner, AutoScan DS-EX. The compact and light-weighted design, making it intuitively easy to set up. With its open structure, you can place the scanner as what you prefer. AutoScan DS-EX comes with multi-die scan function. It can scan up to 8 dies simultaneously, with fine details to increase your working efficiency. AutoScan DS-EX provides multiple impression scan modes to meet your various requirements. Different from Shining 3D's original series of dental scanners, AutoScan DS-EX adopts an innovative algorithm and customized scan module to achieve better.
Now, this particular scanner uses a structured light system, which is what they're known for. But again, they partnered with another CAD tool or so they're normally lower cost, and it appears they also have an intraoral scanner, which means it's going to be similar to the iTero. But they've really gone full into this, and they're another Chinese-based company. They have the scanners here, but notice they also have this new AutoScan DS300, which is very similar to the one we just saw from 3Shape. It actually uses a blue laser as well. So I think it's kind of funny, and the mounting system is magnetic based, so there's a lot of similarities there. And you know, for some people who feel that a lot of products that the Chinese make are very, very similar to those in the United States. In fact, some would blame that they're stealing secrets, as some would like you to think. And there may be some of that going on, but I also know that the Chinese have made a lot of progress in a lot of areas as well. More importantly is that a lot of these products, they have kind of disrupted the market, at least from a hardware basis. And then they pair with other companies. For instance, this ExoCAD is not their software, so they pair with a lot of other people to create the actual software. So that's something else to look at. I did mention briefly their wand system, but the people that have been in this business for some time is a company called iTero, and I have a little video that I'll show. And all these videos you can get yourself. They're part of their links, so you can see it. So let me bring that one up. Where'd it go? Here it is.
iTero has led a revolution in 3D digital dentistry. Instead of using traditional x-rays and messy impressions that are uncomfortable and trigger gag reflex, we replace them with highly accurate digital images from our iTero Element scanner. The digital images are created using laser technology and a handheld compact wand to create a detailed view of your smile. The images are available almost immediately and allow us to create a very precise fit. An additional benefit of the digital impressions of the iTero scanner is the ability of the outcome simulator to demonstrate what your smile will look like following treatment. The reason we are excited about using iTero is a better patient experience, simulated outcomes for patients through digital treatment planning, and an enhanced fit of Invisalign aligners and occlusal guards. Using this cutting-edge technology truly sets us apart from other offices. Schedule today at Calcagno Cosmetic.
So the obvious advantage of the iTero system is you just have a wand that you put in the person's mouth, and you literally get fairly good scans. I've had it done to myself. In fact, one of the experiments, and I'm going to show you the results here in a moment from this, is that once you get your complete scans, you didn't have to do any impressions, so you didn't have to put any goop in your mouth, or you have to do any scanning outside of it. It's all built in and stitched together in the software. It is somewhat expensive. I can't remember exactly, but it's in the hundreds 125,000 if I remember correctly. So it's something you obviously have to make a major investment in. And you also have to sell a lot of Invisalign. And I felt like Dr. Dan Kopp, not to me, but you know, I guess having a system like that, you probably want to sell a lot of Invisalign. And I think anybody who comes in there probably got Invisalign. I didn't. My teeth are fairly straight. I have other issues with my teeth. But it's a very neat system. And we did, gosh, 2 or 3 years ago, actually create some scans of my teeth. And then I, on air, filled my own filling and then made a positive of it. And then was going to have it milled. Sadly, the person in Santa Maria had gotten sick, but I'll show you the results here. And again, these are from some time ago. So obviously we've made a lot of progression. So let me jump to my behind camera. So these were done from the iTero scans. This was done with a Formlab, which I'm going to bring up in a minute. Now, this is before the Formlab was known. This was the version 1. As you can see, it's still fairly good quality, but it took forever to build it, like 8-10 hours to print this. So clearly you're not going to be making a bunch of these rapidly, but they've progressed. They now have a new version that's about 1/3 the time now, or even better. So you have that capability. Here's another example. And then I had it, a company that I think they're kind of defunct now, but they were making different resins for the Formlab. This was actually a medical grade. Actually, no, I'm sorry. This was a fire grade. So literally you could make a mold of this and then burn this out without leaving any residues. So that's this kind of material. And then finally, what this is a CNC milled version. So clearly this was done in far less time and the accuracy was a little better. But this again was 3 or 4 years ago, and the Formlab, which is the lower cost of the systems, which I'll bring up now, with our newer version, now supports this in a full 3D fabrication process. So you can bring your items into it and then print them. And there's a PDF that you can sign up for, and I will go ahead and bring that up. We'll jump that over onto my other screen. Yeah, if I can get a hold of my screen, there we go. And so you can go through the PDF, and it tells you what you need in order to get started. So if you're a dentist, you probably know a lot more about this than I do. If you're not, and you're wondering what the advantages are, there are plenty of links in to learn more about it. I think this is the only way to go. The old techniques of goop in your mouth and creating prints. But you can go through this free PDF. You just have to give them your email address. So you can kind of go through that. But you know, they talk about, let's see if they show, here's your actual flow process. Get an intraoral scan using like something like the iTero. And then manual impressions would be another alternative to scan. And then down 3D print, or bring it into CAD software to print them and then carry out the treatment. So literally you could prepare either, I don't think you could print it fast enough, but you might be able to have something that could be sucked back into a person's mouth the same day. And that's really the goal they're trying to do, is you can get all the work, maybe come back in a few hours and actually get something replaced that matches perfectly the gap that was left there, or if you had fractured a tooth, be able to implement this very quickly. And so this is where we're going with this. Okay, so that's that. That's our 3D in medicine, and we covered our 3D scanning darkly in the same chapter. So I want to bring up this next article. Oh, actually one more item, sorry. The other, and this is kind of like, I would say shotgun, but this is obviously more expensive, using a technique called cone beam computed tomography, CT scanning for the mouth. This little illustration here, essentially you put it on a rotational axis, you're the object in the middle, and this beam rotates around you, creating the tomographic images that can then be compiled together into a 3D. It's essentially very similar to CT. The advantage, let's see if I've got some more information here, is this intraoral radiograph per exposure shows you the differences in the amount of dosages. And this cone beam is between 5 to 38, whereas a standard medical fan beam CT scan of the face is 2,000. So clearly there's advantages in the amount of energy or radiation that you are exposed to. So we're going to see more of it. Obviously, it's more expensive. What is its advantages? You can do full facial structures, gums, and then if you wanted to, you could inject dyes to check veins so that you don't obviously slice somebody's artery. That would be a bad thing. So there's a lot of advantages to that. More of your what do you want to call it, well laid out dental facilities are starting to see this technology. So these are all different variations, and a lot of the newer dentists that you may be going to may have something like that. If you're going, you may have already been sold this idea. Here, I can scan you and then give you a Invisalign. I don't know. And then how safe is it? So all these will be in there if you want to find out, if somebody wants to put you up to it. So on to our next subject, VAMR Corner, virtual reality, dream is dying. A couple of good articles here. I'll sum it up. This person, his name is Joshua Topolsky. He's written before. He's kind of like me, has a loud mouth. But essentially, he's bold in pretty much saying that even with Magic Leap coming out, there's no way that the market's going to be saved. Obviously, he brings up Facebook and the latest, what was the, I wouldn't say CEO, what was he? I guess a vice president or one of the founders of Oculus has left Facebook. So this guy doesn't think that it's going to survive. As I mentioned to Joe, I think it's going to survive. It's just not going to be mainly in the entertainment market. And it's going to be for people who don't mind wearing a little bulk on their head because of the advantages it provides is over other techniques. I saw VR immediately in its advantages if you've done any 3D fabrication or digital design. To fabricate something takes a lot of time and effort, even if you've got your own 3D printer. It's still no piece of cake, but be able to create a model and throw on a pair of VR headsets or a Magic Leap or a HoloLens and see your tangible object, that is the goal. And I think that's where the benefits are going to be, both in engineering, design, architectural, and other types of designs, as well as our industrial designs, as well as medical. That's where my bet, my money's on. And also there's a great article by Gizmodo that talks about the Magic Leap and how underwhelming it was. And yes, sadly, for the amount of money they had, what they actually provided on stage left a little bit to be desired, especially with the HoloLens being an all-in-one unit. And Joe, you mentioned it's not really an all-in-one. It's got a little weight that you put on your side as well as the headset. So it's just as an umbilical cord. The fact is the HoloLens was an all-in-one unit. Yes, it was a little underpowered. And yes, it had a very, very small field of view. But that was 2 years ago. And to see that you got a little bit better FOV, performance was better, but you've got an additional unit on your side for that. So I was left being underwhelmed, especially with the amount of money they've gotten. But let's hope that they still have a lot of that money and they'll be able to come out with a greater product in version 2. Clearly with people, Joe and OnShape being behind it, creating some practical tools for it, that makes me feel a little bit better because I would never use it for comic books. Sadly, I grew out of that when I was 13. Okay, so on to the next item. So I want to go through a few products. I'm in the 3D tech closet. One of the big things that I've been working with now is how to create objects. In fact, since I've been playing with the Wild, I will have the video up either tomorrow or Sunday. I wanted to create a set, but I wanted to make sure that it could be used in their Wild. So I wanted to make sure that it was all, lighting was all baked in, and it was, we want to call it a very optimized mesh. Well, the sad thing is, if you've worked with SketchUp, they've got a lot of great products out there, but they don't really do well when you convert them over to 3D objects. So I've liked to go in that direction, but sometimes it's not really worth the extra time that you have to go through there and recreate the structures. As we had on earlier, SimLab makes a cool product that does baking, but then it adds its own problems. So I've always, in fact, I've talked about 3D Code. 3D Code is really cool because it allows you to take 3D meshes and literally paint on them like ZBrush, but it has more of a Photoshop feel to it. At least to me it does. And I kind of swore to this product back when I was, 3 years ago, starting to sculpt things and then 3D print them, and then I wanted to do color. So it's been a great tool. It's also helped a lot in VR AR. I've got a little video to show that kind of gives you the new features. And then I want to share with you the fact is they also have specials around the holidays. Now, some of the stuff people have done with this is just amazing. It has been my go-to tool for some time now. Really love it. And the cool thing is this product comes in different variants. You can buy a $99 version, the amateur version, and does it tell you your features? The only thing that you don't get, you get limited texture sizes, you only get a limited number of layers, but the jump up to the professional version isn't that much, and then you could obviously get a floating version. But the cool thing is if you're just doing 3D fabrication, so imagine taking an item, exporting an STL out of OnShape, you could bring it in this and weather it. So that'd be kind of cool. Or you could add other features to it, which I've done in the past. Or you could add an OnShape item like a gun or something to a 3D model. So there's a lot of variants, but the 3D printing version is only $49. It doesn't provide any color, but if all you're trying to do is fabricate models using your single color 3D fabric, it's obviously great. And then they do have upgrade pricing, so if you want to jump from one version to another. And the other thing to keep in mind is that they do have specials around the holidays, so keep an eye out for it. It's probably the best time to get it, in fact. I had the professional version that I think I bought the 99 and only spent another $150. So it was like $125 off, something like that. So it was really good deal. I didn't say steal. So try that. But if all you're trying to do is bake, there's some other tools out there like Mighty Bake. I played with this a little bit. It's kind of a neat tool. You essentially can bring in a high resolution object and a low resolution, and you can bake normal mapping and other features directly on the low resolution version. It works. It also has a feature that you can go from a low poly to a low poly to bake features. And then there's another product called Topo Gun. The cool thing about these, they're very low cost and they're kind of geared towards one function. So you can look at them. I'm looking at them because I want something to basically take what I've got in one product and churn it out the other without having to do a lot of work on it. I guess it's somewhat of a pipe dream, but there are tools out there to make it easier. And then finally, who doesn't have Blender? If you don't have Blender, it's free. Then there's a problem. lots of good tools out there and lots of good tutorials. Like I said, I tried to create a texture atlas from a lot of multi-disparate textures and materials. They've got a nice little format here. The sad thing is it's not going to save you a lot of time because you still have to go back and add textures to all those things that you UV mapped. So it's still a little bit of a pain, especially if you have like 100 objects. So not really the direction I wanted to go, but I thought it was a cool little tutorial. And then finally, which will then jump to the laptop, is this Datasmith export plugin. Hint, hint, Joe, maybe OnShape exporter, who knows. But they've got one for 3D Max exporter. I don't use that, but I did play with it a little bit. But the Sketchup Pro is cool. Obviously, you have to buy a Sketchup Pro license, but essentially it's a tool that you can bring into SketchUp, and I'm going to go through really quickly, but you can get these kind of results. And as mentioned, if you put a camera in here, the amount of time it takes to create videos from this versus using iRay or some other tools is outstanding. Now, some people told me, well, then you haven't seen Otoy's new product that can do it almost in real time. But hey, I like Unreal, and it doesn't cost anything. All right, let's move on to the next item, which is I have to bring up my other screen. Give a quick little tutorial. Yeah, make sure my mouse is working. So where did I put it? I just loaded. You can get a 30-day version of SketchUp, and this Datasmith, you can either work with the previous version or the 2018. So I'll bring it up. So the cool thing about it, and I went ahead and tried it. I just want to start using it. So, whoop, I didn't bring up, there we go. There. All right, so I'm going to import something that I had worked on earlier. There we go. So I brought this in from the store, didn't do anything. In fact, just left the little 3D girl. 2018 has a woman now. The previous version had a guy. So that's how you can tell the difference between the two. So I didn't really do anything special, but all I wanted to do was the export feature. So you just pull this down, go to export, 3D model. Then you go down and you find actually, I'm already there, your Unreal Datasmith. You assign it to whatever path you want. I've already done that. And then you go over to Unreal. And if you've loaded the tools, you'll have an import Datasmith already on your menu bar. I think it was on the menu bar. If not, I'm pretty sure it was. So you just click on that. You don't do the standard import in Unreal, which is down here on the bottom. You just go up here. And if you notice, it's already in there. And if I go to play, simulate, there you go. And already baked in the lighting to it. And with baking, probably took about, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes. But if you had a VR headset right now, which I don't have hooked up, you could walk around in it. So it's very, very nice in order to create very realistic environments. The other cool thing is I can click on objects, go down to the materials themselves, let's say this one here, and I can create new materials. So for instance, this one, what do we have here? We don't really have a roughness, but we could add one, and then we can modify it and make it glossy. So now I can go back and save it, and then go back, and then I should have a very glossy, and well, I don't, yep, see it? Now it's glossy. So you can go back and use all the techniques that are Unreal is known for its material creation. You could also bring in materials into Photoshop and create layers using Quixel, which is another cool tool to create normal mapping and things of that nature. And then you can bring them in here, and then using their, where is it, cinematics tool, you can create videos very quickly, very easily. And as soon as they bring in the RX, you'll be able to do some ray tracing functionality for mirrored surfaces. And I really am looking forward to being able to use this more in the future. Sadly, you have to own a pro version of the tool. It won't work in their Make version, which is kind of disappointing. A lot of the plugins do work in the Make version, which is free. But I think the value of, let's see if I've got their little, let's see. Did I not bring it up? Oh, we'll go back to SketchUp here. Let's see what it cost. Buy. Pro license. $6.95. So it's a little chunk. Sadly, I've never seen any Christmas specials for SketchUp. So who knows? Maybe they'll run one. But $6.95, if you add up all these tools, you could buy a new car with them sometimes. But luckily, it's not Joe's product. Joe is a very competitive product for what you get. Okay, so that's about it for today. Joe, I appreciate you hanging on there.
You don't have to keep saying that. You know that, right? Thank you. No, it's fun. Yeah. No,
OnShape is a cool tool. There is a free version. You can do a lot with it. The important thing is, remember that you're not stuck in the OnShape world. You can export your items and use them in other things. And so I found it very easy to work in solid modeling to create mechanisms and then bring them in instead of using some of the other mesh-based tools. So keep that in mind. Just have to remember, sometimes the mesh information that comes out of these are extremely dense and detailed and don't really work well in real-time engines. So keep that in mind. You'll still have to use some tools to decimate them. In fact, there may be a decimator. I didn't look, but OnShape has some
there's a few settings you can set, and we also support Claude Out, so you could take a look at that. I got to look at what our settings are if that is any better, you know.
Yeah, so I'm going to tinker with it and report back in the next couple of weeks. So again, thank you, Joe, for coming on and telling us all about Magic Leap, and look forward to seeing some more demos. So as soon as you put those out on YouTube, send me a link. I'd like to see more of it.
I will.
And then if you've gotten some better answers on how they handle their video in the future, because clearly at what is it, $2,400 per headset, not everybody's going to be able to enjoy that and be able to see that on a big screen without having a performance that's advantageous.
Well, okay. That's a temporary price too, right? I mean, it's a aren't they calling this their development? They're not really calling this a release product yet, are they?
No, that's correct. It is a developer product, and so hopefully, what I'm hoping for is they can push this below 1,000. I think more people will look at it. Just anything about $2,000, and HoloLens is in the same boat. In fact, if you want to get a professional version of that, not just their developer or their educational version, you're still looking $4,500. So it's a quite expensive product. And so that's why I was hoping to hear something about VR. Take that back to whoever needs to hear about it. More VR.
Well, we'll see what Apple do too. Huh?
Open VR. Oh yeah, and Apple will be coming out with something. In fact, I had a little thing that you may want to know is that I have another guy I've been working with who was in China and had one of the companies he was working with tell me that they were working on, for a big company, this nice, very high resolution screen. He said, "You mean Apple? How did you know that?" But this high resolution screen that you may have heard in the news, it does exist. There is a company working on it. And so I do think we're going to see something very unique from Apple. And I'm not a big fan of Apple. So for me to say that, more the merrier, right? Got lots of people working in this, so that should help bring these things down and the quality up. All right, Joe.
All right, thank you.
Enjoy your weekend, and we'll sign off.
Bye-bye.